We start with the leak.
The
Dun,
leak.
dun, dun.
Wow.
Yeah, so Dana White made an appearance on a podcast called The Pivot. This is a podcast starring or hosted by three former NFL players. Ryan Clark from RC and DC fame is one of those three. And also Fred Taylor was a really good running back. And I apologize to the third gentleman. I don't remember his name off the top of my head. But it's actually, based off the catalog I'm seeing, I respect it. I'm like, I'm kind of surprised I hadn't heard of this podcast. But after seeing some of the guests they've had, I'm like, you know what? I might go listen to some stuff. But
Yeah.
that's not why they're making headlines here. And it is for literally in the first 30 seconds of the episode with Dana White. This interview was conducted inside of the infamous war room,
Yes.
the room where the magic happens, as Dana says, the only room that matters in
I
the
see
whole
why.
building. And we were given a lot more
Yes.
to get our hands on than we expected. Just basically the camera just kind of flashing on a lot of different fight cards that were on the walls. And Dominic, what are we supposed to make of this information? I mean, we got main events, we got whole main cards being shown on here. We
Yeah.
have potential locations for future pay-per-views
Yeah.
being flashed on the screen. Everybody's losing their mind. I mean, is Nate Diaz really fighting Khamzat Chimaev? What's going on, Dom?
Brother, I think MMA Twitter exploded when this happened. I mean, Twitter is seemingly shut down because we're part of that community, and that's all I saw on my whole feed. It was crazy. So many, not just like fights, huge fights, big names. I mean, you just said it. Nate Diaz versus Khamzat Chimaev was listed on there for International Fight Week. Israel Adesanya, Jared Cannonier, Patty Pimblett's return at UFC London. I mean, you had Magomed Ankalaev versus Anthony Smith. Robbie Lawler, Brian Barberena, Pedro Munoz, Sean O'Malley, also on International Fight Week.
Don't
This was
forget
crazy.
John Jones, Stipe Miocic for July
Yes.
30th. After we just heard that September is when that
September.
fight's gonna happen.
What's going on? Is the board not updated, Dana? I don't know. This is crazy. I don't remember, even definitely during the podcast, but even before, as we're into this sport for years now, I've never seen anything like this where leaks. We obviously see fight announcements get announced all the time before the UFC does it officially, but nothing like this where it's behind the scenes, not supposed to be seen type of stuff, seemingly out there to the public. The pictures have been screenshotted. There's no going back now. It was crazy, man. I've never seen nothing like it. And these fights, I mean, it's pretty crazy. Especially, I mean, the big glaring one, Diaz, Khamzat Chimaev. I thought we were past this bridge, and here we are turning right back. I don't know.
I thought we were past this. I had made peace with this fight a while ago. I had said at once upon a time, probably 6 months ago, I kind of came at people who were so against that fight. I was like, look, it's a pretty massive fight. Like I'm just saying, like I kind of get it. And I'm not saying I would. At the time, I was like, I wouldn't be not excited for that fight. But once Hamza beat Gilbert Burns, that just changed everything. I mean,
Yeah.
now it feels like for Hamza, this is actually going backwards, in my opinion. Like
It does.
Nate, don't get me wrong, is a huge star, and he's got some fights left in him if he shall choose to do that. But it's just he's not in any sort of, you know, um, he's not a contender by any means.
Yeah.
And Hamzat clearly is, and we were hearing Dana being all in on this ABC 5-round main event with him and Colby Covington, and now potentially it's the co-main event on a really big card with him and Nate Diaz. It's just kind of a weird one,
Yeah.
I think. Now, let's just make something clear here. Just because this stuff was leaked, it was shown on the walls and everything. Look, this is their war room. This doesn't mean that
Yes.
these fights are official. It doesn't mean that both have signed on a dotted line. Some fights have been made official. I mean, some even after this were coming
Yeah.
out as being official. But I think a lot of this is what they want to do, too. I mean, I don't think John Jones, Stipe Miocic is happening on July 30th, but
Right.
that's where they want it to happen. And with this fight, I kind of get similar vibes. But again, I don't like that it's even on there. Like, why?
Yeah.
Why
We
is
don't.
this fight? Why is this the fight that they want? When you have such glaring other options,
Yeah.
you got down the road a Conor McGregor fight with Diaz. You got the Dustin Poirier fight that we've all been talking about. It just it's strange to me.
Yeah.
But obviously, I think it's a lot of politics. But honestly, it's so blatant. And if this were to transpire and this fight were to get signed, I mean, how can you really support this fight at that point? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we tend to kind of overlook some things. We admit that because we're fight fans, and in order to have that kind of love and enjoyment, sometimes you have to kind of overlook some shady shit. But
Yeah.
with this, I mean, it'd be so glaring that they're kind of holding this man almost hostage from his contract being able to free himself. That it's kind of gross.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not for it, man. I mean, of course it's huge. Obviously, we get it. It's two
Yeah.
of the biggest names in the sport. But, dude, Hamzat's in title contention. I mean, Nate Diaz isn't there anymore. He's that huge name, but there's just so many other fights that people want to see. You can do separately these two and still have massive cards. You know what I'm saying? Like, Dustin versus Nate would be huge. Hamzat versus Colby would also be huge. Hamzat for a title shot
I mean, you
is
could even
huge,
do
you know?
Hamzat versus Bilal Muhammad. It'd be a big deal.
Yeah,
I mean,
Hamzat is that big now.
Yeah.
Yes, I think so. So this doesn't need to happen. I sure hope it doesn't happen. And honestly, like, just like when we talked about it however many months ago, is Nate even gonna is he even gonna consider this, man? I mean, let's be real. I can't see him taking this fight. I don't know.
I mean, just the way he's been talking to, and I know that some of it may be tongue in cheek, and maybe we shouldn't take it at face value what he puts on Twitter and whatnot. But this seems like a guy that just really wants to be out of this contract he's in with the UFC for whatever reason, whether it's to just go on and be free
done.
and be able to do whatever he wants to do. Is it to go box Jake Paul? I really don't think so. I mean, isn't it kind of funny how, like, we all keep assuming that, but, like, Jake Paul's literally never called Nate Diaz out.
Yeah, there's probably a reason behind that, by the way. But
well, I mean, you say that, but I mean, he calls out Conor McGregor, Jorge Masvidal.
true.
But I get what you're saying. I just, he. I mean, yes, at one time I'm sure he traded jabs on Twitter with Nate Diaz, but basically my point is, I don't think this fight's gonna end up happening. But the fact that it's still being considered is just like, it's just puzzling. It's, yeah, whatever, in the name of the business, like, this is what they're gonna do, but it's just gross. And I don't like this part of it. I want to be able to root for the UFC to get these fights done, to put the best of the best against the best of the best, and this almost feels like we're gonna be watching like like the gladiator pit back in ancient Rome or whatever, like bringing out like a very injured gladiator to take on this full healthy lion, and it's
Right.
what are we doing here? I mean, is this
No
really
need.
enjoyable at this point?
Yeah, and it's not like on Twitter during when all this leaked, like I didn't see people, oh, we're gonna get it. This is the fight. Like, there's not that much interest. Like, of course, everyone's gonna watch because of the two
everybody's
names.
talking about it because they don't want this.
Exactly. So it's like, come on, what are we doing?
And I mean, we'll talk about some of the other fights that were made official because I think they deserve a little bit of respect here.
Yeah.
UFC 276 is looking to be a very stacked card on July 2nd. Some of the fights added: Pedro Munoz versus Sean O'Malley. This one's been talked about for a while. Truly Sean O'Malley's first top 10 test.
Yep.
I think that's a great fight. I've been seeing a lot of people say that he's a more favorable matchup for O'Malley as far as top 10 talent goes. And I see that a little bit. I mean, Pedro Munoz, he does take a lot of shots, but I also think of just how much he pressures. I think of his leg kicks, and I don't know.
Pedro's good.
It's a very fun fight. I mean,
Yeah.
it's one that O'Malley should win if he is who the majority of people want him to be or think he is. But also, I don't think it's one that he necessarily gets out of unscathed. I mean, you saw Chito Vera, do what he did to him back in the day. So anything can happen. Also on this card,
Oh,
headlining the prelims, Dominic. I mean, come on. This is my guy here.
this is violent.
This is ruthless, Robbie Lawler, he's back going up against Brian Barberena, who we saw live against Matt Brown.
What a fight.
I mean, I think that's a great fight, right? I mean, I'm glad Brian Barberena, he called for another contract and he got it, and he goes up against Robbie Lawler. I think the matchmaking is fantastic on this one.
Yeah, they don't go wrong with Brian Barberena. Every fight he gets makes so much sense, and they're always so fan friendly. Robbie, he still looked good. I know it was Nick Diaz, right? But Robbie looked good. He had a long time off. This is going to be another long break. That's a fun scrap.
Also, it was harder to tell because a lot of people were just saying Takashi Sato's on this card because he's the one that's more clearly on there. But he's fighting Matt Brown, is who it looks like.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Matt Brown being on this card, I'm glad he's getting another fight if he wants to keep going. I know we kind of looked at that Columbus fight between him and Barberena as perhaps his last outing, but the guy had a lot of heart, man. He showed a lot in that
And I
fight.
think he really wants to go out on top.
Yeah,
too,
and I mean, Takashi Sato is not an easy fight. I mean, he's a younger, he's taking less damage, he's going to be more athletic, more perhaps explosive. It's not an easy fight, but I mean, Matt Brown is just such a legend, man.
Yeah.
I mean, also, UFC 277, July 30th. This is the one that they showed Stipe versus John Jones. Interesting note that Kamaru Usman versus Leon Edwards not found.
Of course.
I'm just wondering if perhaps that hand injury, that hand surgery on Kamaru might hold him out till August or September or whatever it might be. But a fight that did get confirmed for this card that was shown, Ankalaev versus Anthony Smith. This looks like it's going to be a title eliminator, wouldn't you think?
I would say so. It makes plenty of sense. I don't even care that it's 4 versus 5. It surely feels like a number one contender fight. Man, what a story for Anthony Smith if he can get back. Because that was a guy that he made it there to John Jones, right? But then went on that skid. But now he looks so damn good again. He's still so well-rounded, still so young with age. Magomed, of course, a surging star. Or not surging prospect that's just tearing through the competition. Yeah. I had to backtrack real quick on the wording there. I think that's a fun fight. And, yes, it should be for the title eliminator.
Yeah. I mean, crazy that Anthony Smith has climbed. He's crawled his way back. I mean, just Dominic, remember, we were about 2 years ago looking at a man that we were calling for to potentially retire coming off his loss to Glover Teixeira.
And he had even debated it, too, you know?
Well, and then you followed that up with the performance against Alexander Rakic, which was one of our very first cards that we really got the deep dive. And, man, to see the turnaround for him in just a year and a half or 2 years, I mean, it's been pretty miraculous. And he's looking fantastic in these wins. So, all power to him. I guess.